Disaster recovery has dramatically changed in recent years, especially when you think about adding the addition of drones. Not only is it good to assess damage, but they're also used in rescue operations as well. We do want to bring in here with us on Live Now from Fox Airborne Response President Christopher Todd. And Christopher, thank you so much for being here with us. Describe a little bit about Airborne Response, what your guys' role has been here in the aftermath of Ian.
Sure. We are a Miami, Florida-based drone services provider that specializes in emergency management and critical infrastructure. So we actually started gearing up before the hurricane made landfall to start preparing for our response efforts, working with our partners in critical infrastructure, power restoration, insurance. And since Hurricane Ian made landfall, we've had teams out helping with power restoration, assessing telecommunications structures, as well as preparing for the vast flood of insurance claims that are about to come in.
So how many different areas have you guys been covering here ever since Ian struck afterwards now?
Sure, we've had teams throughout all of Florida. So we were positioned in Southwest Florida where the storm made landfall, but we also had the teams positioned on the projected track from the National Hurricane Center because we knew there would be damage associated with the storm in all the Florida counties associated with that track. So we've seen that. We've had the teams there. It's been wind and storm surge damage in Southwest Florida, flooding, and some wind damage in the rest of Florida over to the East Coast.
And you think about too, if we were talking beforehand, just about having a drone's usage, there's so many different ways to utilize it. So as you were just talking about, this could be to assess ahead of time some property damage. It can be done afterwards. And then also searching for any signs of some of those hardest hit areas, any signs of survivors who had been accidentally left behind, who weren't able to escape. What have been some of the things you've been hearing from those technicians out in the field?
It's been very challenging immediately after landfall to move the teams around due to the flooding and the trees, the timber that was in the road. So that needed to be cleared. We needed to get the roads open so we can move the resources around. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We had teams before landfall working with power companies to assess vegetation overgrowth, help them trim back some of that vegetation. So when the winds came and those trees started to collapse, they wouldn't hopefully take the power lines down with them. And that type of operation continued up until we couldn't fly anymore because it became unsafe due to weather conditions. As soon as the storm passed, we were back up conducting a variety of operations. And yes, some of them did become assisting public safety agencies who might need a look inside a house or a structure or a car or some type of object just to make sure nobody was in there who might need help.
I mean, we think about all the pictures, and it can be after any type of disaster, but you think about pictures and video down on the ground versus now introducing drone video. You really can get kind of a broader spectrum on how large of an area had been destroyed. You kind of get a better sense as to what you may need to do to get into those areas. I'm sure that's what a lot of these emergency personnel are leaning on you guys for as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the drone gives you a point of view that for anyone who's seen drone footage, and I think that's most of us by now, but it gives you a perspective that you don't see every day from the ground. That's why it's so valuable for power restoration. We can fly along power lines and assess damage very quickly, see what poles, what infrastructure are down. We can fly around communication towers to see what damage has happened. And for search and rescue, yeah, same thing. We're able to look in buildings, look in across rivers and in cars that might have been swept away into a pond or a canal to see if somebody might be in there that we could potentially rescue, as well as for mapping. There's a wide variety of mapping and photogrammetry modeling that we can do with these systems that's really exciting and help scientists and geographers and weather forecasters learn more about the storm and hopefully prevent these types of casualties moving forward.
And as far as when you guys have been out there in Florida, especially as you've had teams across the entire area, so they've seen really the extent of damage all the way from how homes being completely wiped out to maybe just a little flood damage. Any stories stick out to you from some of those who are out in the field that Airborne Response has been talking about?
Yeah, it's, we see all kinds of things. And me personally, when I was touring the damage area, I stopped along I-75 to film the floodwater just with my iPhone as it was rising next to the highway. And everywhere you looked, it was flooded. I got back to my car, drove about a mile down the road, and there was a doe, a female deer with 3 baby deer standing on the side of the road, looking at the flooded area, knowing they couldn't go into that. And on the other side was traffic, and they couldn't go into that. And so they were just kind of stranded there on the shoulder. And that to me just kind of represented the type of plight that not only the animals, but people are facing right now. It was tough to make choices in this storm for a lot of people who didn't heed the evacuation orders. And as you know, our pilots are running into stories like that everywhere throughout Florida. People who need a little help, they want to know, what condition their house is in. Is this happening in other parts of Florida? And I think most importantly is help on the way. So if we can give them a little bit of hope and a little bit of a bright light, at the end of the tunnel, it tends to go a long way.
What I've heard too from a lot of people as well is that, the resiliency of the people there in Florida, the spirits, they continue to push through even after disasters happen like this. Of course, no one can predict the exact path of the storm. So that's what did make a lot of these residents in some unsafe areas not able to leave ahead of it striking. Again, it's just something that you hear these stories, and it's just great that you can use different technology to help lend a hand to make the community even stronger. And you guys really do have a lot of partnerships. I know you were talking to me earlier about some of those partnerships with local officials and with those emergency responders. I'm sure they too just appreciate all these different pieces of technology and tools that they can use to help respond.
Yeah, absolutely. We work very closely through our 501c3 nonprofit arm, the Airborne International Response Team, or AIRT. We have a program called Drone Responders, where we work with over 6,000 representatives of public safety agencies across 71 different countries. And we have a really large group here in Florida, the Florida Public Safety Coordination Group, or FLOW Group. All of those team members were deployed for Hurricane Ian in one way or another. I traveled around and checked in on them and made sure they had what they needed. And just to see them interacting with each other and supporting each other throughout this deployment has been it's been just amazing to watch. And I think it's just the first step in some great things that are going to be coming out of that group moving forward.
And I just hope that soon, weeks from now, we see some drone video from you guys of some great areas that have been cleaned up and rebuilt. Anything else you feel like important to add when it comes to this conversation of what you guys have been doing in Florida, and not just with Hurricane Ian, but also year round?
Yeah, I think you brought up a really great point there. And it's going to take a while to rebuild the hardest hit areas. I was in Fort Myers Beach, and it's for anyone who's been there, it's vastly different. It's devastated. And it's going to take years for that to really become a semblance of what it once was. But through drones and related technology, we can help that rebuilding and that recovery process by not only mapping the disaster, but helping to map construction projects and help kind of plan the future for rebuilding cities like Fort Myers Beach. So that's going to be exciting to watch, and we definitely expect to play a role in that moving forward.
Yeah, well, you guys have played a big role, and I'm sure so many people are appreciative of it, and we're appreciative of your time too, just describing a little bit of what you have been doing. Again, we have Christopher Todd, the president of Airborne Response, here with us. Thank you so much, Christopher, for being here and sharing more about the work you guys have done already.
Thank you.